Hey everyone, Elizabeth here. The Last Laugh delivers stories that leave you speechless. If you're here for that, subscribe. Let's begin. The birthday cake had 38 candles on it, which meant my mother had been alive long enough to watch me be humiliated at her own celebration. My sister Danielle set the cake down with the careful satisfaction of someone who had done everything right. She had booked the restaurant, organized the guest list, and chosen a custom cake from the bakery 2 blocks from the Westchester house. She and her husband Marcus mentioned often enough that you were never allowed to forget they owned it outright. I arrived with a cashmere travel blanket in dusty rose, my mother's favorite color. Danielle glanced at it on the gift table and said nothing, which was its own kind of comment. There were 14 people at dinner: my parents, Danielle and Marcus, my aunt and uncle from Connecticut, 3 of my mother's book club friends, 2 longtime family couples. My cousin Priya, who was the only person there who had texted me beforehand to ask if I needed anything. I didn't. That was the part my family never understood. At gatherings like this, they performed a version of me, the younger daughter, the one who dabbled, the one who still hadn't figured it out. I had spent years letting that version exist because correcting it always cost more than it gave back. My name is Claire Ashford, and for most of my adult life, I had been very deliberately invisible. Not because I was shy, not because I was failing, because I had learned that in certain rooms, visibility comes with a price. I grew up in a family where success had to be legible. Doctor, lawyer, engineer, teacher. A title people could understand over dinner. A salary with benefits. A life with obvious structure. Danielle had done that perfectly. By 32, she was a senior marketing director at a pharmaceutical company, married to Marcus Chen, a corporate attorney with a law firm name made of 4 surnames. They had the house, the cars, the polished life, the Christmas cards with the lab in a tartan bandana. And then there was me. At least the version they thought they knew. What I actually had started quietly at 24 in my apartment in Hoboken with a laptop and a problem. I was bored. I had done the responsible thing first. Business degree. Supply chain job. Mid-sized retail company. I learned how products moved, how margins worked, where the money actually lived. I was good at it, but I could see the ceiling from where I stood. One night I started running numbers on a different model and could not stop. I wasn't interested in building a cute little online store. I was interested in the infrastructure under it. The supplier relationships, the fulfillment chains, the space between what something cost to make and what the market would bear. So I started small. A dropshipping operation with specialty home goods. Minimalist organizers, bedding, kitchen accessories, clean design, good margins, nothing glamorous. I sourced from a North Carolina manufacturer called Meridian Goods and ran everything from my laptop after work. My family found out that first Thanksgiving. Dropshipping? My father said, like I had announced I was doing street magic for rent money. Danielle laughed. Not cruelly, not yet, just reflexively. So you're basically a middleman with a website? Essentially, I said. Dad set down his fork. You have a real job. Why are you doing this? I tried to explain that the numbers were strong, that I was learning fast, that this was bigger than it looked. They listened politely and moved on to Danielle's promotion. That was 6 years before my mother's birthday dinner. What happened during those 6 years was invisible only because I chose to keep it that way. Within 18 months, the dropshipping business had passed $400,000 in revenue. I quit my job quietly and told my family I was doing remote consulting, which was technically true in the most useless possible way. I hired a small team, expanded product lines, increased volume, and as I did, I began to understand Meridian Goods from the inside out. Meridian was run by Gerald Holt, a third-generation manufacturer who was excellent at making things and tired of pretending he wanted to spend the rest of his life selling them. He had built the company to $80 million in annual revenue, but the logistics world was shifting faster than he wanted to chase it. He needed capital. He needed a succession path. He needed someone who understood what he'd built. When I asked for a meeting, he said yes. We talked for 4 hours. He noticed that I wasn't impressed by the surface. I was paying attention to the structure, the inefficiencies, the leverage points, the future. At 30, I acquired a controlling stake in Meridian Goods for $14.2 million. Gerald stayed on as chairman. I restructured operations, expanded the network, and created a parent company above it all. I named it Callisto Industries. A small moon orbiting something larger without drawing much attention. That felt appropriate. Over the next 3 years, I made 3 more acquisitions: a textile manufacturer in Georgia, a logistics software company in Ohio, and a packaging firm outside Dallas. I brought in a CEO for daily operations and kept my own role quiet, titleless, almost invisible, the kind of owner whose name only shows up in documents that matter. By the time I walked into my mother's birthday dinner, Callisto Industries was doing roughly $340 million in annual revenue and had been in acquisition talks for 8 months with a private equity firm out of Boston called Kensington Partners. The valuation conversation had landed at $2.8 billion. My diluted stake would net around $1.76 billion at close. And my family still thought I ran a little online store. I let them think that because at first secrecy had been practical. In acquisitions, you keep your leverage close. But after a while, the secrecy became something else. A boundary, a test. A way to see how long the story they had written about me would survive without my help. The answer, it turned out, was not past dessert. The only person who knew everything was Sonia Vega, Gerald's former CFO, who stayed after the acquisition and became my closest operational partner. Sonia understood something about being underestimated that I never had to explain. She once told me, "You're going to have to tell them eventually." "I'll tell them when there's nothing they can do with the information," I said. "That isn't the same as being ready," she replied. She was right, but I kept the boundary anyway. By the time of my mother's birthday dinner, Kensington had finalized the deal. The public announcement was scheduled for the following week. What I did not know was that Kensington's PR team would move the release up by 6 days to get ahead of a leak in financial media. At 7:42 that night, while I sat at the table being explained to myself, Sonia texted me. "Heads up, announcement just dropped. You okay?" I read it under the table, set my phone face down, and said nothing. Dinner had been uneventful up to that point. My mother cried when she opened the blanket. My father told a golf story no one enjoyed as much as he did. My aunt asked whether I was seeing anyone, and the subject changed quickly, as if singleness at 30 were a bruise no one wanted to press. Then Marcus started talking about a deal his firm had handled in logistics. Danielle lit up beside him the way she always did when Marcus talked about work, like his status was a light she could stand near. "Corporate work is just a different level," she said. "The complexity. The scale. It's not like running a little online store." She glanced at me when she said it. My father joined in with that tone parents use when they think they're offering wisdom instead of repetition. "We've never pushed back on the store thing because we know it makes you happy. But Marcus is right. The world has structure," Marcus said. "Salaries exist for a reason. Stability exists for a reason." "I'm stable," I said. "You're dropshipping," Danielle said, louder now, loud enough that my mother's friends went quiet. "Can you please stop telling people you run a business? It's embarrassing. Marcus's colleagues asked about you at a firm dinner, and I didn't know what to say." "You could have said I run a business," I told her. "You resell products you don't manufacture from a website you didn't build to customers you've never met," she said sharply. "That's not a business. That's a hobby with a Shopify account." Then my father actually slow clapped. 2 measured claps. "She's right," he said. "Get a salary, get benefits. You're 30 years old." I nodded and sipped my water. That was the moment I was done. Not because I wanted revenge, not because I wanted to humiliate them back, but because there is a very specific exhaustion that comes from being repeatedly misread by people who love you, and I had carried that exhaustion for 6 years. Then Marcus's phone buzzed. He picked it up casually at first, then his face changed. I watched him read the alert once, then again. "Wait," he said. The table shifted slightly. Callisto Industries just completed a $2.8 billion acquisition deal. He stopped and looked down at the phone again. "Who is Callisto Industries?" No one answered. "Manufacturing and logistics," Marcus said slowly. "Parent company that owns Meridian Goods, which is..." He looked up at me. "Claire." The room had not gone silent yet, but it was seconds away. "Yes," I said. "Meridian Goods," he said carefully, "is the company you source from, for your store." "One of the companies I source from," I said. He scrolled again and read from the press release. "Kensington Partners completes acquisition of Callisto Industries. Founder Claire Ashford will continue in an advisory role." Then the table went completely still. My father had bread halfway to his plate. My mother had both hands around her wine glass. Danielle looked like someone watching a room rearrange itself around a fact she had no defense against. "Is that you?" my father asked. "Yes." I said it plainly. I founded Callisto Industries in 2019 when I acquired a controlling stake in Meridian Goods. Over the next 4 years, I made 3 additional acquisitions, grew the company to roughly $340 million in annual revenue, and spent 8 months in negotiations with Kensington. The deal finalized the week before. The announcement was supposed to happen the following Wednesday. Their PR team moved it up. I said all of that in the same tone someone might use to confirm a reservation. No one spoke. My mother finally asked, "You own a manufacturing company?" "A manufacturing and logistics holding company," I said. "Worth?" My father asked. The acquisition valued it at $2.8 billion. My stake was 63% post-dilution. My aunt covered her mouth. My father leaned back like he physically needed distance from the information. "For how long?" he asked. 5 years. "You've owned $1 billion company for 5 years?" "It wasn't worth that when I bought it," I said. "It grew." Marcus recovered first. Professional recalibration came naturally to him. "The store," he said. "That was how you learned the supplier." "Yes." He nodded once, recalculating every conversation we'd ever had. Then Danielle finally spoke. "Why didn't you say anything?" I looked at her and gave her the honest answer. At first, it was practical. In a competitive acquisition environment, you don't announce your position. After that, it was simpler. Every time I came to dinner, I was already written. You all already knew who I was, what I was doing, what it was worth. I got tired of explaining. I got tired of what happened after I explained, so I stopped. Danielle blinked. "You were hiding." "I wasn't hiding," I said. "I was watching." "Watching what?" "Whether anything would change on its own." Priya reached under the table and squeezed my hand once. I kept my voice even. "I'm not angry. I'm not doing this to embarrass anyone. The timing tonight was not my choice. But I have been called a hobbyist, a burden, and a cautionary tale at this table for 6 years, and I think that deserves to be addressed with accurate information." The word dropshipping came out of Danielle again, but this time it sounded smaller. "The retail storefront was real," I said. "It did $6.2 million last quarter. It was also the least interesting part of what I built." My father let out a long breath. Then he said, roughly and without polish, "I owe you an apology." "You were working with the information you had," I said. "That's generous." "It's accurate. The apology is still appreciated." My mother started crying. Not because of the money. Because she understood, all at once, that I had carried an entire life alone and never brought it to her. "I'm all right, Mom," I said. "I know," she replied. "That's what I'm crying about." Then I looked at Danielle. "I don't need you to understand why I didn't tell you. But I need you to know that every time you described my work as nothing, it cost something. Even when I looked like it didn't." She stared at me, smaller than I had ever seen her. "I didn't know," she said. "You chose not to investigate," I said. "That's different." And then the cake arrived, because no one had remembered to stop the waiter. The rest of dinner moved quietly after that. My mother cut slices. People asked practical questions. Everyone acted normal in that careful family way people do when truth has arrived, but no one is ready to sit inside it yet. Marcus spoke to me quietly near dessert. "The Kensington deal," he said. "Closes when?" 90 days. "Advisory role?" 18 months. Transition and oversight. He looked at me with something close to respect. "You built something significant." "I built something I cared about," I said. "They're related, but they're not the same thing." At the end of the night, my father found me near the coat check. "I didn't see it," he said. "You saw what I let you see." He nodded. "I shouldn't have needed to be given a reason to believe in you." That one landed. "No," I said. "You shouldn't have." 3 months later, the Kensington acquisition closed. Sonia called me the morning the wire hit and said, "We did it." Gerald Holt sent me a handwritten note. Not about the money, about stewardship. It said, "You took care of what I built. Thank you for that." I framed the note, not the transfer confirmation. I bought my parents a trip to Portugal because my mother had mentioned it 3 different times over 4 years and never planned it. My father called after I texted the itinerary. "You didn't have to," he said. "I know." There was a pause. "I'm proud of you, Claire." "I know that too," I said. "It just took a while to get the information." He laughed softly, the way people do when grace is being offered and they know they did not earn it quickly. Danielle called 2 weeks after the dinner. She asked questions first. About structure, about timing, about Gerald. She was rebuilding the picture before she could talk about how badly she'd gotten it wrong. At the end of the call, she said, "I called it embarrassing." "You did. I'm sorry for that, not for being wrong about what you built. I didn't have that information. For the contempt, that part was mine. That mattered." I told her I knew she wanted the best for the family. I also told her the way she expressed that and the way I experienced it had never been the same thing. There was a pause after that. Then she asked, "So what now?" "We figure out what it looks like from here," I said. And after another pause, she said, "The cashmere blanket was really nice, by the way. Mom won't stop talking about it." I smiled. Not because I had won. Because after all of it, after the money and the silence and the recalibration, we were still what we had always been. The daughters of Patricia Ashford. Not everything was fixed, but something had been returned to the truth. And for now, that was enough.